If you clicked on this video, you probably are struggling to meet a word, page, or character limit for a document that you're working on. And maybe you've thought about using AI tools to help because sometimes they can be really helpful for this. But AI tools don't catch everything, and you might be working with confidential or proprietary information and cannot use these tools. So in this video, I'm going to share 10 tricks that you can use to reduce the number of words in your writing. And if we haven't met, hello. My name is Crystal Heron. I'm a trained biomedical scientist turned clinical researcher and now scientific and medical editor. And I've helped thousands of scientists, clinicians, and other professional writers master the craft of writing so they can write with intention, meet word limits, and maximize their impact in their field. So one of the most agonizing parts of academic writing is cutting down your writing to meet a page, word, or character limit. But although you might find it agonizing, I love a good word count challenge. And I've been an editor for nearly 15 years, so I have a lot of tricks that I use to cut down text. And I often have to cut drafts down by 10, 20, or even 30%. So I'm going to share 10 tricks that I use to condense text. And these ways do not include cutting content. They are mostly ways to cut a word or a few words here and there. And while that might not sound like much, if you can delete a word or two from every sentence, they can really add up in a document. So this will be more of a rapid fire list of things to consider. And if you want examples, I have a free download that includes the 10 tricks with examples, as well as 10 more tricks that I won't cover in this video. I'll add a link to that in the description box. So one way to remove words is to eliminate redundancies. And redundancies are different from repetition in your writing because redundancies are terms or phrases that unnecessarily repeat words or meanings. For example, the phrase could potentially is redundant and you really only need to use could. Or time period is also redundant and you only need to use period. So to help you spot redundancies in your writing, you can download the guide that I mentioned at the beginning of this video to get a cheat sheet of common redundancies to avoid in your writing. Another way to reduce the number of words is to watch for wordy phrases and needless words. For example, the phrase a majority of can often be replaced with the word most. And the phrase based on the fact that can be replaced with the word because. So to help you spot wordy phrases in your writing, check out that guide that I mentioned, and that includes a cheat sheet of common word phrases to avoid and short substitutions that you can use instead. Another thing that you want to avoid is unnecessary adverbs and adjectives. Adverbs modify verbs and adjectives modify nouns, but good words don't need modifying. Most adverbs and adjectives weaken strong verbs and nouns, which weaken the power or persuasiveness of your writing and add unnecessary words. And so when you omit unnecessary adverbs and adjectives, you can make your writing stronger and more concise. Now, if you want to learn more about strong verbs, I'll add a link to an article that I wrote on the topic in the description box. Another way to reduce words in your writing is to use active voice instead of passive voice. Active voice uses fewer words and it makes your writing clearer and more compelling. Now, I know that passive voice has quite the history in science and medicine, and it's a hotly debated topic, and there is a time and place for passive voice. And if you want to learn more about passive voice and when to use and avoid it, I do have a free mini course that you might want to check out, and I'll add a link to that in the description box as well. But passive voice uses more words than active voice, so active voice can be a great way to reduce the number of words in your writing. Another way to cut words in your writing is to remove conjunctions, such as the words and, or but. So conjunctions often connect two independent statements that can be rewritten as two separate sentences. So when you delete the conjunction to create two separate sentences, it's an easy way to be able to cut words. Another way to cut words is to revise nominalizations. So nominalizations are when you take verbs like develop and adapt and turn them into nouns like development and adaptation. Or nominalizations are when you take adjectives like formal and responsible and turn them into nouns like formality and responsibility. So basically what you do is you tack a suffix onto the end of a perfectly good verb or adjective to turn it into a noun. Now, nominalizations can be powerful tools for naming concepts or describing complex ideas in a few words, such as the words mutation or expression. But more often, nominalizations turn powerful words into weak words that sap the energy and clarity from the writing. And when nominalizations are not used well, they are often surrounded by the words the and of. So revising nominalizations can help to remove those two words, as well as to simplify the language and add energy to your writing that is persuasive. If you want to learn more about nominalizations, I'll add a link to an article that I wrote on the topic in the description box. Another thing that you can do to meet word limits is to delete filler words. For example, phrases such as literature shows or studies have shown are often unnecessary and they can disrupt the flow of your writing. And honestly, readers care more about the data anyway. So cutting out those filler words can be an easy way to cut a fair number of words from your writing. Now, similar to filler words, you can easily shave a few words off your word count if you do not refer to previous content in your writing. For example, avoid phrases such as described in the previous section, or as noted above. Oftentimes, we don't need these words, and so we can cut them out to condense the text. Another way to cut words from your writing is to turn negatives into affirmatives. So sometimes you can revise negative phrasing to positive phrasing to cut out the word not, does not, do not, or similar. So to help you spot negatives in your writing and to turn them into affirmatives, download the guide that I mentioned and you will get a cheat sheet of common negatives to avoid and the affirmatives to replace them with. And the last strategy to reduce the word count is to transform the singular form of a word into the plural form. For example, you can use mice instead of a mouse, or students instead of student, or patients instead of patient. And when you take a singular and turn it into a plural, you can reduce one word. So those are 10 tricks to reduce your word count to meet page, word, and character limits. And if you'd like a few more tricks, be sure to get the free download. And if you'd like even more tricks, you might want to check out my Scientific Writing Simplified course. One of the modules in the course gives all my tips and tricks for meeting word, character, and page limits. One of my students loved the module so much that they called it the fireworks of the course. So in case you'd like to check the course out, I'll add a link to the description box. And if you liked this video, you might also like to see me edit some text in real time to get to see some of these changes in action and learn even more tips for cutting text and refining your writing. I'll add a link to that video that I created on this topic at the end of this video. And if there's something in particular that you'd like to learn more about, let me know in the comments. I create these videos for you, so I want to make sure that I'm creating something that you will find valuable. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you in the next video.